Good morning, evening. I want to start today by asking you a question. How many of you have ever found yourselves scrolling through your phone, binge watching a show you don't even care about, or putting off something important because it just feels easier to avoid it? Don't worry, you're not alone. I've been there too. Time is relentless. It moves forward whether we act or not. This simple truth is one of the most humbling aspects of life. Each second, each minute slips by without asking for our permission. It doesn't pause for our fears or wait for us to feel ready. Time is constant, impartial, and unyielding, a silent force that shapes the contours of our existence, whether we're mindful of it or not. And yet we often behave as though time is ours to control, as though we have all the time in the world to do the things we dream of, mend the relationships that need mending, or pursue the goals that call to us. It's easy to fall into this trap. There's always tomorrow or next week or next year, at least that's what we tell ourselves. We lull ourselves into a false sense of security, believing that the time we have now is renewable, forgetting how finite it really is. Think about how often we procrastinate, how often we say, I'll do it later. It's such a simple phrase, one that rolls off the tongue without much thought. But when you really sit with it, when you peel back its layers, it's a phrase filled with assumptions. It assumes that later is guaranteed. It assumes that we'll be in the same position with the same resources, the same energy, and the same opportunities. But life rarely works that way. Opportunities come and go. Circumstances change. We change. And time marches forward indifferent to our plans and excuses. Sometimes this relentless forward motion feels overwhelming. It's hard to recognize no matter how much we accomplish or how hard we try, we can't slow it down or make it pause. But instead of letting this reality paralyze us, we can let it sharpen our focus. We can use it as a reminder to be intentional with how we spend our days, to recognize that every moment holds value. Time doesn't have to be our enemy. Its relentlessness can actually be a gift. It teaches us urgency, not the kind of urgency that leads to panic, but the kind that motivates us to take action. It reminds us that there's no better time than now to start something important, to express gratitude, to take a risk. When we understand that time won't wait for us, we begin to see the opportunities in front of us with fresh eyes. We've all experienced moments of regret over time we've wasted. Maybe we stayed in a situation that wasn't serving us for far too long. Maybe we put off an important conversation because we were scared of how it might go. Maybe we ignored our own needs, convincing ourselves that there would be time later to focus on our well-being. Those regrets can weigh heavily, but they also hold valuable lessons. They remind us to stop waiting for the perfect time, because perfect doesn't exist. The only time we have is the time we're in right now. Time's forward motion also has a way of highlighting what truly matters. When we think about how we've spent our time, the moments that stand out the most are rarely the ones filled with distraction or avoidance. They're the moments of connection, of purpose, of being fully present. They're the times when we leaned into life instead of pulling back. Still, being mindful of time isn't about productivity for productivity's sake. It's not about cramming our schedules with as much as possible or measuring our worth by how much we accomplish in a day. It's about alignment, ensuring that how we spend our time reflects what we value most. It's about choosing to invest our energy in the things and people that matter, rather than letting our days be dictated by distractions or obligations that don't serve us. In our fast-paced, always connected world, it's easy to get swept up in busyness without stopping to consider whether the way we're spending our time is actually meaningful. We wear our packed schedules like badges of honor, equating busyness with success. But being busy isn't the same as being purposeful. It's entirely possible to be constantly on the go and still feel like we're not moving forward in any real way. When we take the time to reflect on how we're spending our days, we often realize just how much of it slips away in small, unremarkable ways. We scroll through social media, we fall into endless loops of distractions, and we put off the things we truly care about because they require effort or courage. These patterns are so easy to fall into, and they're so human. But when we remember that time is relentless, that it keeps moving regardless of whether we're paying attention, it becomes harder to justify spending it on things that don't matter. There's a sense of liberation that comes with embracing time's relentlessness. It frees us from the illusion that we can control it and encourages us to focus on what we can control: our choices, our actions, our attitude. It's not about racing against the clock or squeezing every last drop out of every day. It's about making peace with the fact that time moves forward and choosing to move forward with it in a way that feels intentional and fulfilling. Understanding the relentlessness of time can be a powerful motivator. It urges us to act, to take responsibility for how we spend our days, and to recognize the opportunities that exist in every moment. While we can't stop the clock, we can make the most of the time we have, honoring it as the precious resource it is. Wasting time is losing opportunities to live fully and grow. Time, as elusive and intangible as it may seem, is one of the most precious resources we have. Each moment holds the potential for discovery, connection, and transformation. But when we waste time, whether through inaction, distraction, or avoidance, we miss out on those moments, on the chances to shape our lives into something meaningful. Wasting time is not just about letting the minutes slip away. It's about forfeiting opportunities to become the person we are capable of being. Sometimes wasting time happens without us even realizing it. It can feel harmless in the moment, an extra hour scrolling on our phones, another day putting off that project, another week avoiding that important but uncomfortable conversation. We tell ourselves it doesn't matter, that there's always tomorrow, but when those moments add up, they can create a pattern, a habit of postponing the things that matter most. And the cost of that habit is higher than we think. It's not just the time that's lost, it's the possibilities, the growth, and the connections that could have happened in those moments. Living fully requires intention. It's not something that happens by accident. To live fully, we have to be present, to pay attention to the opportunities in front of us, and to have the courage to say yes to them. When we waste time, we're saying no to those opportunities. We're choosing comfort over challenge, distraction over focus, and stagnation over growth. It's an easy choice in the moment after all. Growth often feels uncomfortable, and distraction is almost always easier than being present. But over time, those small choices add up and they shape our lives in ways we might not want. Growth, too, requires effort. It doesn't happen automatically. We grow when we push ourselves, when we step outside our comfort zones, when we take risks and try new things. But all of that takes time to reflect, to learn, to fail, and try again. When we waste time, we're robbing ourselves of the chance to grow. We're staying in the same place instead of moving forward. And while staying in the same place might feel safe, it often leads to feelings of restlessness, dissatisfaction, and regret. It's not just the big moments that matter when it comes to living fully and growing. The small, everyday choices we make are just as important. How we spend our mornings, our evenings, our weekends, these are the building blocks of our lives. When we waste those small moments, we're wasting the chance to create a life that feels fulfilling and aligned with our values. There's a quiet kind of grief that comes with realizing you've wasted time. It's the weight of missed opportunities, of relationships that weren't nurtured, of dreams that were put on hold for too long. But that grief can also be a wake-up call. It can remind us to pay attention, to make different choices, to stop letting time slip away without thought or intention. Wasting time isn't always about laziness or lack of motivation. Sometimes it's a way of avoiding fear. We waste time because we're scared of failing, scared of not being good enough, scared of making the wrong choice. But avoiding those fears doesn't make them go away. It just gives them more power. And in the process, we lose the chance to prove to ourselves that we're capable of facing them. There's a difference between resting and wasting time. Resting is intentional. It's a way of honoring our need for balance, for recovery, for moments of stillness. Wasting time, on the other hand, is unintentional. It's letting time pass without purpose, without connection, without growth. It's the absence of presence, the absence of awareness. When we waste time, we're often not even fully enjoying the moments we're in. We're distracted, disconnected, caught in a cycle of numbing or avoidance. We're not truly living in those moments, we're just existing, letting time move forward while we stay stuck. To live fully and grow, we have to break that cycle. We have to recognize the ways we waste time and ask ourselves why. What are we avoiding? What are we afraid of? What do we truly want? These questions aren't always easy to answer. They're essential if we want to stop wasting time and start living intentionally. The truth is, every moment we waste is a moment we'll never get back. Time is the one resource we can't renew, the one thing we can't buy or earn more of. And while that thought might feel overwhelming, it's also a powerful reminder to treat time with the respect it deserves. When we stop wasting time, we open ourselves up to the possibilities that exist in every moment. We give ourselves the chance to live fully, to grow, to connect, to create, to discover. Wasting time isn't just about what we're doing or not doing in the present. It's about the ripple effects those moments have on the future. It's about the opportunities we miss, the growth we delay, the lives we could have lived if only we paid attention. When we waste time, we're not just losing minutes or hours, we're losing pieces of ourselves, pieces of the life we're meant to build. Be honest about what truly matters to you. It's a deceptively simple statement, but one that can be incredibly challenging in practice. In a world that constantly bombards us with messages about what we should value, what we should strive for, and who we should be, it can be hard to tune out the noise and listen to our own inner voice. Yet, honesty with ourselves is the foundation of a meaningful life. Without it, we risk spending our time chasing goals that don't truly resonate with us, living according to other people's expectations, and losing sight of what makes us feel alive and fulfilled. Being honest about what matters starts with introspection. It requires us to pause and ask hard questions. What brings me joy? What fills me with a sense of purpose? What am I doing because I truly want to, and what am I doing because I think I'm supposed to? These questions can feel uncomfortable because they force us to confront the possibility that some of the things we've been pursuing might not actually align with our deepest values. But discomfort is a small price to pay for clarity. The challenge of honesty is that it often requires unlearning. From a young age, we're influenced by the expectations of our families, schools, cultures, and societies. We're taught what success looks like, what happiness should feel like, and what paths are worth following. Over time, these external messages can become so deeply ingrained that we mistake them for our own desires. It takes courage to step back and question whether the things we've been striving for are truly ours, or if they're simply reflections of what we've been told to want. When we're not honest about what matters, it's easy to fill our lives with busyness without feeling fulfilled. We might achieve milestones, collect accolades, or check items off our to-do lists, yet still feel a nagging sense of emptiness. That emptiness is often a signal that we're out of alignment, that we're dedicating our time and energy to things that don't actually nourish our souls. Ignoring that signal can lead to burnout, resentment, and a lingering sense that something is missing. Being honest about what matters also means letting go of comparison. It's natural to look at others' lives and wonder if we should be doing what they're doing. Social media has amplified this tendency, creating an endless stream of curated images and stories that make it seem like everyone else has it all figured out. But comparing ourselves to others is a distraction. Their paths are not our paths, and their definitions of success may not be ours. When we base our choices on comparison, we lose sight of our own values and priorities. Honesty demands vulnerability. It requires admitting to ourselves and sometimes to others that we don't have all the answers, that we're still figuring things out, that our priorities might look different from what's expected. Vulnerability can feel risky, especially if it leads to decisions that challenge the status quo or disappoint those around us. But the alternative, living a life that's disconnected from our truth, is far more costly. Sometimes honesty means making difficult changes. It might mean walking away from a career that no longer excites us, even if it offers financial security. It might mean reevaluating relationships that don't support our growth, even if they've been part of our lives for years. It might mean setting boundaries to protect our time and energy, even if those boundaries are uncomfortable to enforce. These choices can be painful, but they're also acts of self-respect. They're ways of honoring what truly matters and refusing to settle for anything less. One of the barriers to honesty is fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. We worry that if we're honest about what matters, we might make the wrong choice, or that others might not understand or approve. But honesty isn't about perfection, it's about authenticity. It's about being true to ourselves, even if the path ahead is uncertain or unconventional. Honesty also involves patience. What matters to us may not always be clear right away. It can take time to sift through our experiences, to listen to our inner voice, to experiment and explore. Being honest doesn't mean having all the answers immediately. It means being willing to ask the questions and stay open to what emerges. When we're honest about what matters, we give ourselves permission to live intentionally. We stop wasting time on things that don't align with our values, and we start investing in the things that do. This shift isn't always easy, but it's profoundly rewarding. It allows us to create a life that feels meaningful, not because it checks someone else's boxes, but because it resonates deeply with who we are. Honesty also has a ripple effect. When we're honest about what matters, we inspire others to do the same. Our authenticity becomes a light that encourages those around us to reflect on their own values and make choices that align with their truths. In this way, honesty isn't just a personal practice, it's a gift we give to the people in our lives and to the world at large. Being honest about what matters is not a one-time decision, it's an ongoing process. Our values and priorities can shift as we grow and change, and staying true to ourselves means revisiting these questions regularly. It's a practice of self-awareness, self-compassion, and courage. It's a commitment to living a life that's not just busy or successful by external standards, but one that feels authentic, purposeful, and deeply fulfilling. Embrace imperfection. Perfection is a myth. This idea challenges one of the most deeply ingrained beliefs many of us carry, whether we realize it or not. From a young age, we are often taught to strive for perfection, to get everything just right, and to avoid mistakes at all costs. The idea of being flawless is presented as an ideal, a standard to aspire to, and something that will bring us happiness, success, and approval. But the truth is, perfection is not only unattainable, it's also exhausting. The pursuit of it can rob us of joy, creativity, and the ability to truly connect with others and ourselves. Perfection is seductive because it promises safety. If we're perfect, we think we'll avoid criticism, rejection, or failure. We convince ourselves that if we just try a little harder, if we can just fix this one flaw or get this one thing right, then we'll finally feel worthy. But that sense of worthiness never comes from perfection, because perfection is a moving target. No matter how much we achieve, no matter how hard we work, there will always be something else to fix, improve, or prove. The goalposts keep shifting, leaving us in a constant state of striving and never arriving. The myth of perfection also keeps us stuck. It can paralyze us, making us afraid to take risks or try new things because we don't want to fail or look foolish. We hold back, waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, or the perfect skill set before we begin. But that perfect moment never comes, and in the meantime, life continues to move forward. Our dreams, our opportunities, and our potential are put on hold, not because we lack ability, but because we let the fear of imperfection hold us back. When we embrace imperfection, we open ourselves up to growth. Mistakes and failures are not just inevitable, they're essential. They teach us lessons we couldn't learn any other way. They show us where we need to grow, help us build resilience, and remind us of our humanity. Each misstep is an opportunity to learn something new, to adjust our course, and to get closer to who we want to be. When we stop fearing imperfection, we start seeing it as a natural and valuable part of the process. Imperfection also deepens our connections with others. When we let go of the need to appear flawless, we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We let people see us as we truly are: messy, complicated, and wonderfully human. This kind of authenticity fosters trust and intimacy, creating relationships that are more meaningful and fulfilling. Perfection, on the other hand, can create distance. When we try to appear perfect, we risk coming across as unapproachable or inauthentic. We miss the chance to connect on a deeper level, because true connection comes from shared humanity, not from polished appearances. Embracing imperfection doesn't mean settling for mediocrity or giving up on self-improvement. It's not about lowering our standards or becoming complacent. Instead, it's about recognizing that our worth isn't tied to our performance or achievements. It's about allowing ourselves to be a work in progress, to celebrate the effort we put in rather than just the outcomes we achieve. When we focus on progress rather than perfection, we give ourselves the freedom to grow, to experiment, and to enjoy the journey. The myth of perfection is reinforced by the culture we live in. Social media, advertising, and even the way we talk about success often glorify the appearance of flawlessness. We see curated images and stories that highlight the best moments of people's lives, creating the illusion that everyone else has it all together. This illusion can make us feel like we're falling short, like we're the only ones struggling or making mistakes. But the truth is, everyone has challenges, insecurities, and imperfections. They just don't always show them. When we compare ourselves to these curated versions of reality, we're holding ourselves to an impossible standard. Letting go of perfection requires courage. It means being willing to show up as we are, even when we feel vulnerable or inadequate. It means trying new things, even if we're not sure we'll succeed. It means being kind to ourselves when we fall short, instead of berating ourselves for not being good enough. This kind of self-compassion is not a weakness, it's a strength. It allows us to keep going, to take risks, and to pursue our goals without being held back by fear. When we embrace imperfection, we also give ourselves permission to experience joy. The pursuit of perfection can be all-consuming, leaving little room for spontaneity, play, or appreciation of the present moment. We become so focused on what we need to fix or achieve that we forget to celebrate what's already good. By accepting our imperfections, we make space for joy, gratitude, and contentment. We learn to appreciate ourselves and our lives as they are, rather than constantly striving for some idealized version of them. Imperfection is where creativity thrives. Some of the most beautiful and innovative ideas come from moments of failure or imperfection. When we stop trying to get everything right, we give ourselves the freedom to explore, to take risks, and to think outside the box. Creativity requires a willingness to experiment, to make mistakes, and to embrace the unknown. Perfectionism stifles this process, but imperfection allows it to flourish. Ultimately, embracing imperfection is about reclaiming our humanity. It's about recognizing that our flaws and mistakes are not something to be ashamed of. They're what make us real. They're what make us relatable, resilient, and capable of growth. When we let go of the myth of perfection, we allow ourselves to live more authentically, connect more deeply, and approach life with a sense of curiosity and compassion. It's not about being flawless, it's about being whole. Clarity in priorities leads to clarity in life. This simple truth holds immense power when we take the time to understand it fully. Life is filled with choices, decisions, and opportunities that can either align with what we value or pull us away from it. Without clear priorities, it's easy to become overwhelmed, distracted, or lost in the noise of daily demands. But when we are clear about what truly matters, we create a guiding framework that shapes how we spend our time, energy, and resources, allowing us to move through life with purpose and intention. Clarity doesn't come naturally, it requires effort and reflection. It's easy to get swept up in the pace of life, responding to what feels urgent rather than what is important. We say yes to too many things, take on responsibilities that don't align with our goals, and find ourselves exhausted by obligations that leave little room for the things that truly matter. Clarity asks us to pause, step back, and examine what we're doing and why. It asks us to identify the core values and goals that are most meaningful to us and to prioritize them above all else. When we lack clarity, life can feel chaotic. We find ourselves pulled in different directions, trying to do everything and please everyone. This kind of scattershot approach often leads to frustration and burnout because we're investing time and an energy without a sense of purpose. But when our priorities are clear, decision-making becomes easier. We know where to focus, what to let go of, and what to say no to. This kind of clarity is liberating. It frees us from the pressure to do it all and allows us to dedicate ourselves fully to what matters most. Clarity also helps us recognize and overcome distractions. Distractions come in many forms: unnecessary commitments, social media, the pressure to meet external expectations, and even our own fears and doubts. These distractions can take up significant time and energy, pulling us away from our priorities and leaving us feeling unfulfilled. Clarity acts as a filter, helping us distinguish between what is meaningful and what is simply noise. It gives us the confidence to set boundaries, to protect our time, and to focus on the things that align with our values and goals. It's not always easy to determine our priorities, especially when life feels busy or overwhelming. Sometimes we think we know what matters to us, but when we dig deeper, we realize that our actions don't reflect our values. We might say that family, health, or personal growth is a priority, but if we're spending all our time working or caught up in distractions, our actions tell a different story. Clarity requires honesty. It asks us to look at how we're actually spending our time and whether it aligns with what we say we care about. Clarity and priorities also brings a sense of alignment. When our actions reflect our values, we feel a greater sense of harmony and fulfillment. Life doesn't feel as fragmented or stressful because we're living in accordance with what matters to us. This alignment creates a sense of peace and purpose, even in the midst of challenges. We might still face obstacles and setbacks, but we know we're moving in the right direction because our choices are grounded in what we truly value. One of the most powerful aspects of clarity is that it simplifies life. When we know what matters most, we don't have to waste time agonizing over every decision or trying to balance conflicting priorities. We can focus our energy on the things that align with our values and let go of the rest. This doesn't mean life becomes easier, free of challenges, but it does mean that we approach it with a sense of focus and purpose that helps us navigate those challenges more effectively. Clarity also has a ripple effect. When we're clear about our priorities, it influences how we show up in our relationships, our work, and our communities. It helps us communicate more effectively, set healthier boundaries, and build stronger connections with others. People can sense when we're living with intention, and it inspires them to do the same. In this way, clarity in priorities not only benefits us, but also has a positive impact on the people around us. One of the challenges of clarity is that it requires us to make tough choices. When we're clear about our priorities, we often have to say no to things that don't align with them, even if those things are appealing or come with opportunities for approval or recognition. This can be uncomfortable, especially if we're used to trying to please others or take on more than we can handle. But saying no is an essential part of honoring our priorities. It's a way of protecting our time and energy for the things that truly matter. Clarity also involves adaptability. Our priorities may shift over time as we grow, change, and encounter new experiences. What mattered most to us 5 years ago might not be as important now, and that's okay. Clarity doesn't mean rigidly sticking to a fixed set of priorities. It means being honest with ourselves about what matters in the present moment and being willing to adjust our focus as needed. This kind of flexibility allows us to stay aligned with our values and continue growing in meaningful ways. When we're clear about our priorities, we're better equipped to handle the inevitable challenges and uncertainties of life. Clarity gives us a sense of direction, a foundation to return to when things feel chaotic or uncertain. It reminds us of what we're working toward and why it matters, helping us stay grounded and resilient even in difficult times. It's not about having all the answers or never making mistakes. It's about having a clear sense of what guides us and letting that clarity shape our choices and actions. Trust that small steps matter, even when the destination feels far away. It's easy to become overwhelmed by the scale of our goals or the distance between where we are and where we want to be. When we focus solely on the end result, the journey can feel daunting, and we may doubt our ability to achieve it. But progress is rarely about massive leaps. It's about the consistent, intentional steps we take each day. Each small action, no matter how insignificant it may seem in the moment, builds momentum and brings us closer to our destination. There's a quiet power in small steps. They may not be flashy or immediately gratifying, but they are the foundation of meaningful change. When we focus on small, manageable actions, we create habits and routines that support our long-term goals. These habits might seem ordinary, but over time, they compound in extraordinary ways. The daily commitment to showing up, even in small ways, is what ultimately leads to significant progress. Small steps also make big goals feel more approachable. When we think about the entirety of a journey, it can feel overwhelming and paralyzing. The sheer size of the task can make us hesitate, procrastinate, or give up before we even begin. But when we break it down into smaller steps, the path forward becomes clearer. Each step is achievable on its own, and as we focus on completing one step at a time, we build confidence in our ability to keep going. Trusting the process requires patience. In a world that often values instant results, it can be difficult to stay committed to something that takes time. We may not see immediate evidence of progress, and that can be discouraging. But meaningful growth is rarely visible in the short term. It's the accumulation of small efforts over time that leads to lasting change. Trusting that these efforts matter, even when we can't yet see the results, is an act of faith in ourselves and our journey. One of the challenges of small steps is that they can feel insignificant. We might wonder if a single workout, a single hour of focused work, or a single act of kindness really makes a difference. But every action, no matter how small, contributes to the bigger picture. Each step is a building block, a piece of the puzzle that creates the larger whole. When we honor the value of each small step, we recognize that progress is not about perfection or instant transformation, it's about consistency and persistence. Small steps also allow us to learn and adapt as we go. When we take on too much at once, we risk becoming overwhelmed and making mistakes that could have been avoided. But when we move forward in small increments, we give ourselves the opportunity to reflect, adjust, and refine our approach. Each step becomes a chance to gather insights, build resilience, and grow in ways that prepare us for the next stage of the journey. The beauty of small steps is that they create momentum. Each step we take builds on the one before it, creating a sense of progress and achievement. This momentum fuels our motivation, making it easier to keep going. Even when the road ahead feels long, the act of moving forward, no matter how slowly, reminds us that we are capable of progress. Momentum doesn't require us to be perfect. It simply requires us to keep taking steps one after the other. Small steps also make room for grace. They remind us that we don't have to have everything figured out all at once. We don't need to know exactly how the journey will unfold or have a flawless plan in place. What matters is our willingness to start, to take the first step, and to trust that we will figure things out as we go. This approach allows us to embrace imperfection and focus on progress rather than perfection. When we trust in the power of small steps, we also cultivate a sense of presence. Instead of fixating on the end goal or worrying about how far we have to go, we can focus on the step we're taking right now. This shift in perspective allows us to appreciate the journey and find meaning in each moment. The destination may be important, but the journey itself is where growth, learning, and transformation happen. Trusting small steps also helps us overcome fear. Big goals can feel intimidating, and fear of failure can hold us back. But when we focus on small, actionable steps, the fear becomes more manageable. Each small step is an opportunity to build courage and resilience to prove to ourselves that we are capable of moving forward even in the face of uncertainty. Ultimately, the power of small steps lies in their consistency. It's not about doing something extraordinary once. It's about showing up every day and taking intentional actions that align with our goals and values. This consistency creates a foundation for sustainable progress, allowing us to build a life that reflects our deepest aspirations. Small steps remind us that even the longest journey begins with a single step, and every step after that is a testament to our commitment and determination. In the end, life's most profound changes, deepest connections, and greatest achievements don't come from perfection, overnight success, or the constant chase for more. They come from embracing imperfection, staying clear on our priorities, and trusting in the power of small, consistent steps. When we let go of distractions, focus on what truly matters, and commit to showing up authentically, we create a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. Time is our most precious resource. When we choose to use it wisely, we not only honor our own journey, but also inspire others to do the same.